what it did was it helped me manage my condition rather too well. So it meant that I made huge compromises and put up with a level of life which, really looking back now, shouldn't have been acceptable, but I sort of normalised it. So through meditating, through self-healing, I was able to manage to keep the semblance of a professional practice going and pay the mortgage.
So you had a certain structure you were managing to maintain.
Yes.
It was pretty limited compared to what you used to do, though.
It was certainly, yes.
And what was the turning point? Because I think you were sick, for several years, was it?
About 6 years into being sick.
That's a long time, yeah.
It was a long time. My social life had shrunk to zero. I was literally managing my day through meditation and rest around the little bits of work I did, seeing clients, I guess holding myself together so they didn't get any sense of my not being, my being a bit wobbly.
It's even harder, isn't it, when you have to see
hold
clients and not necessarily
yeah.
reveal the full extent of what's going on with yourself.
Exactly. I couldn't go out in your everyday world in terms of be with groups of people, go to the cinema. It was very, very limited what I could do. So about 6 years in, I think the penny dropped that I'd really had enough of this, and I didn't want to see the rest of my life, because I was in my 50s by then, that time, in this very narrow way of being. So I came across the Optimum Health Clinic, who you know, and they introduced me to a more holistic approach of getting better, and understanding that I really needed to take the learnings and the skills which I practice on a daily basis into my day, throughout my day. So rather than using the meditation as an island to escape to and get, rebalance in between life, I started taking the tools that I was using, the techniques, if you like, as shorthand, more spontaneously, into my day.
So you learnt, but you also learnt to involve nutrition and other things as well, didn't you?
Absolutely. The whole psychology side of things, which fits very well with meditation,
Yeah.
What was I thinking about myself? How was I thinking about life? Understanding that the thoughts that I habitually run and the behaviour patterns that I habitually run, how they could either work against my health or work for my health, so take me into the stress response or the relaxation response. And of course, when you have ME, your system is pretty well constantly in a heightened sense of the stress response. So you're looking to, as it is really, as it can be for anyone who's in a crisis, or who has any illness, or is under any form of chronic stress.
So eventually you got out of your illness and you're pretty much fully recovered now, I think, aren't you?
I've been recovered for now coming up 3 years.
Right.
Which is great.
And you're teaching meditation to different kinds of people, but some of those people are sick themselves.
Yes, I teach. I teach for the Optimum Health Clinic for people who have ME. We run a conference call group, which sounds a bit strange, but actually it works very well. People can learn meditation, self-help skills from the comfort of their own home. And I also teach a broad cross-section of people who mainly are drawn to the way I teach, because I'm not aligned with any of the traditional schools that sort of contain, you might say, doctrine and dogma. Mine is a much more fluid approach that draws from what I've found, the sort of what works for me from various different schools of meditation. So it's quite an eclectic, very fluid approach that's pretty well in line with sort of the more contemporary psychology.
So what kind of things do you say to people when you're first teaching them to meditate? What kind of advice do you give?
The first thing I tell them is not to try hard.
Not to try hard?
Not to try hard. In fact, probably not to try at all. To trust that their unconscious mind or the subconscious mind actually knows an awful lot more about them and, as it were, the right way to be, or the more a more balanced way to be than their conscious, rational mind does. I tell them that their body and their body's mind, with all its neural pathways, is going to be doing the learning as much, if not more, than the part of their mind that they use traditionally in learning. And to sit back. We're always on the front foot. We're always at some very subtle and not so subtle level within us, moving towards doing the next thing, to open a space within themselves just to sit back and see what that's like. Sit back in this moment here. So it's very much about learning to open up to just being in this moment. Let it come to you rather than you moving towards it.
And what does this involve in terms of a time commitment from the person? Is it? Do you recommend meditating once or twice a day for a certain amount, or do you see it very much individual in terms of what they're able to do in terms of their other commitments?
I think when you first start out, it's really because you're relearning a way of being in the world. Literally, how you operate in the world is going to be shaped. It's going to change. So, on a daily basis, I'd suggest certainly twice a day for 10 minutes a day. Maybe to begin with just 5 minutes.
It's quite short a time in effect, yeah.
It's a shorter time, but it's more important, you'll get more out of it if that time is focused and you have a sense of your awareness, a sense of engaging with your practice, than battling with struggling with something that is more difficult to maintain, which if you look at doing a longer one can be. But more than that, throughout the day, I put a lot of emphasis on people taking the skills like sitting back, grounding, which is building a connection, developing a connection to ground, getting in touch with your relationship with the stuff of ground beneath your feet. So it's a very balancing, fundamental part of your existence that you can lose touch with when you go up in your head and you're in the sort of area of thoughts and movement and ideas. So to ground, to come back to the present moment, because the present moment is a place that will hold you. It's the place that the now happens in, that life happens in. To soften your mind, to centre yourself. So all of those little shorthand skills throughout your day. It begins to change the way you operate in the life.
So in fact you start off with maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, but in effect the effect is throughout the day, and it's changing how you are as a person in a way, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. So it's remembering to do that, remembering to step back, remembering to soften your mind, remembering to ground, remembering to come back to the present moment, and to soften your mind and see the bigger picture. And so I say to people, well, remind yourself why you chose to learn a self-help skill like meditation. Remind yourself it's an investment in you.